I'm going to go ahead and get started, but welcome everyone to today's webinar titled Tech Careers in Healthcare, Real Advice from our Emory Alumni. We're so excited to have you all joining today. The session is co-sponsored by the Atlanta Young Alumni Network and the Rollins School of Public Health Alumni Board. My name is Sophia Lamb, and I'm the president of the Atlanta Young Alumni Network, also known as AYA. I'm also joined by our Learning and Development Committee with Emory Genius and Jeff Watley, as well as our Associate Director of Alumni Engagement, Yabi Tamisi. Overall, AYA aims to connect young alumni under 40 in the Atlanta area through social, volunteering, and learning and development opportunities. We also have the Rollins School of Public Health Alumni Board, which today we are joined with the coordinators, Niles Friedman, who will be the moderator and who's a current board member, as well as Michelle James, who's the Director of Alumni Engagement at Rollins. And the RSPH Alumni Board is obviously a bit more global and geared towards graduate at Rollins School of Public Health. And today we're also joined by four amazing panelists from the Rollins School of Public Health, the Rosetta Business School, the School of Medicine, and the School of Nursing to talk about their experience working with tech in healthcare. And so before we officially dive into our panel, Yabi is going to drop a poll. And if y'all could just answer those questions, that would be greatly appreciated. We love kind of seeing where y'all are joining from. I know we kind of have a diverse board here, so we want to see all the populations that we're reaching. So we'll give you about a minute to fill that out. And once we're good, I'll pass it over to Niles in a minute. Awesome. Thank y'all.
Love to see the Rollins representation.
Yes. Looks like we've got a mix of people from the college, Emory College, as well as Oxford, the School of Medicine, School of Nursing, the Business School, Laney, obviously Rollins. Amazing.
Is being
Awesome. Well, Yabi, I think that's a pretty good number. So we'll go ahead and pass it over to Niles to take it away.
All right. Thank you much, Sophia. And just kudos to you, Sophia, and your team. You guys have been an amazing partner on this webinar. Our focus today is going to be on healthcare and tech. And I just want to plant a little bit of a seed here. We're going to have a final poll question at the end because we also want to hear back from you all of what's resonating today, what additional programming we can invest in. I mean, this space of healthcare and tech is huge. As Sophia mentioned, we've got four amazing Emory alum that just bring such a diversity of perspective in the healthcare space and tech space, being entrepreneurs, having a nursing background. We've got folks that represent Boston, California, Atlanta, DC. So it's a really amazing, diverse group of folks, and we really want to build off of today and see what else we can do from a programming perspective as we start to think about healthcare and tech, because this space, as you can imagine, is evolving very quickly. We'll talk about AI a little bit, probably a little bit more as well, but this idea of like what is happening in the market and how Emory alum can respond and react proactively is really a big focus for us today. So really excited to partner with AYA and Sophia and our team, and we want to dive right in. So what I'd love to do is have each of our panelists briefly just describe how they got to where they are today. So they all represent schools from nursing, medicine, undergraduate, Rollins, MBA. Would love to hear a little bit about your story, how you got to where you are today, and then we'll go into some of the questions that we think are really, really specific to the tech industry, and what are some of the trends, what are some of the skills and backgrounds that our panelists are seeing resonate in this space today. And then we want to talk a little bit more practically and tactically about what you can do. If you're thinking about moving into tech and healthcare, if you've been in tech and healthcare and want to evolve or make a pivot, we'll give you some advice around that as well. So why don't we kick it off? And I'll just call David. Oh, David, you good? Yeah.
Yeah, just a sneeze, but it's okay.
Sorry.
You caught me post sneeze. It's
I
okay.
caught you right in the sneeze. Yeah.
Happy to go first.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So I'm David Culp. I am a graduate of the college, and then just graduated from the medical school 3 weeks ago. Was in Atlanta until 2 days ago, and I'm now in Boston, where I'm coming in from. I'm an incoming resident at Boston Children's and Pediatrics and Brigham and Women's Hospital at Harvard Medical School in internal medicine. Um, I my path to where I am now is a little convoluted and sort of right place, right time. In the college, I studied philosophy. I was a liberal arts major, and then ended up going to the FDA and worked in AI ML regulatory policy in the healthcare industry on the regulatory side of things, working with large companies and industries in regulating their devices. After which, I did my master's in digital health artificial intelligence at the University of St. Andrews as an Emory Robert T. Jones Jr. Scholar, for those of you who know what that is, in Northern Scotland, and then came back to Emory for medical school. My interests broadly are in machine learning applications for predicting pediatric deterioration. That's on the research side. But in the last couple of years, I've gotten really involved in venture, worked at a venture capital incubator called Biolocity in Atlanta at Georgia Tech, helping spin out medical technologies. And I'm interested in getting involved in similar things in Boston as a med peds resident. And I will pass it back to Niles, who will introduce the
All
next
right.
panelist.
Great. Thank you, David. I'd love to go with this kind of clinical medical theme. Brianna, you represent obviously the nursing school, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey and sort of post Emory, where you've kind of evolved with your career.
Hi, everyone. I am Brianna Marshall. I came out of the School of Nursing in 2021. Always had a interest in like becoming an entrepreneur and in maternal health. So I started with my clinical rotations. There's a lot of things that I just like noticed in maternal health that there was like no solution to, and start building my personal maternal health app, which was we were detecting postpartum depression in Black and Brown moms. And I think that's very important, knowing that Black and Brown moms die 3 times as likely as our opponents. So it's doing good, but being a solo founder is very, very hard. And I was working at Grady in the emergency department. I mean, got traction, was a part of Atlanta Tech Village, went through Georgia Tech, but just the momentum and the speed, I just couldn't do it as a solo founder. But always knew I just wanted to be in the space and wanted to give back the knowledge. That I know now to other nurses who are trying to do things beyond the 4 walls, which is the hospitals. So just now consulting for companies and also interested in venture capital. So I'm an analysis at Atlanta Tech Angels, going through healthcare deals and giving my clinician experience. So yeah, just learning more about venture capital.
Very good. Well, I love what you're describing, and David did this as well. I mean, you've got this foundation from your Emory school, and then you're talking about being an entrepreneur and being a founder and getting into VC circles. And it really is illustrating this theme that I think we wanted to convey today, which is that the world is big in this tech healthcare space, and there are so many different roles you can play. So thanks for really highlighting the diversity of your background. I think with that kind of sort of theme, Matt, would love to hear about your journey from MBA school, and you have a theme of being an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for the opportunity to talk with y'all. I am a 2001 graduate from the Gosweda Business School. I am also a co-founder of a small business, that helps people who need cognitive support to build habits and routines. It's a neuroscience-based habit building app, if you will, with some wraparound clinical coaching that really supports individuals with autism, Down syndrome, ADHD, traumatic brain injuries, even people with mild cognitive impairment, which are a little bit older and at risk for dementia, and their caregivers, to really improve their quality of life and independence, and allowing them to live in the the setting that they want, and allow them to do things that we all take for granted, like brushing your teeth or doing your laundry, making your favorite meal, or even getting a job and knowing what to do when you get there. You can basically sequence things step by step by taking pictures and short videos and follow them more independently. So we've been successful with basically getting NIH funding, also venture. Not quite yet on the institutional venture side, but we have what are called strategic investors, health systems, health plans, and the AARP invested in us. I started the company with a former provost of Emory, Stuart Zola, who is a neuroscientist. And so the ties back to the Emory community are strong, me from the business side and him from kind of the healthcare background. So I'm really excited to share my learnings as a founder, how I kind of got here from management consulting and some of the upcoming trends that I think are going to be very relevant in the job market coming up.
Very good. Thank you, Matt. And I love this connection. Sometimes we can get into our, different schools and our different sort of circles, if you will. But I love the fact that you have this background and connection to the MBA school, but everything you're talking about is so foundational to public health and healthcare. And it kind of, again, demystifies this idea that because you're in that one camp, you can't do other things in the healthcare tech space. So love it. And last but not least is Asa. She is a fellow Rollins alum. We're on the alumni board together. She's actually going to become the president for the board in a few days with the next term. So really excited to have her on the call as well. And would love to hear about your background and your journey from Rollins. And then we'll dive into some of the discussion around trends.
Yeah, sure. So born and raised in India, I'm actually a physician by training, went to med school, moved to the US and got my master's in public health at Emory. And in a way, it was my first sort of, I was moving to America and getting settled in and getting my master's. Really enjoyed my time at Emory. Learned a lot right out of that. I actually ended up working for the Emory hospitals and the Emory Healthcare Network. Think of it as that was right when the Affordable Care Act had gone into play, and we were bringing around 4,000 physicians all across Georgia and Florida under the Emory Healthcare Network. So I was sort of leading that from both like a physician management perspective, as well as like running the day-to-day operations. Ended up going to MIT for my business school, got my MBA from Sloan. Post that, ended up doing consulting in New York with McKinsey. It was a 180-degree pivot. I pivoted into retail tech, and I've spent last decade in retail tech. Post McKinsey, I ended up joining CVS. That was right before COVID had started. So it was figuring out how do you fulfill orders at that point when COVID was full steam, and there was nothing we had done to prepare for that. I ended up doing DoorDash, and currently I'm at Walmart working on launching AI products at scale for retail. So that's sort of been my journey. Throughout that, the one thing I've learned is it's the same thing something I learned in med school, which was being very analytical. Most people, when they think about doctors, they don't think about that as a skill, but to be able to read a room, to look through the diagnosis of a patient and be like, okay, there are 50 things that can happen, but this is likely the thing that's happening. When I came to Rollins, it allowed me to take that thinking and apply it at scale. How does this impact a population? How do we think about population outcomes? Business school honed a lot of my strategy, communication skills. So I think one of the things when I think about my career is the dots only connect when you look back. It's really hard when you're in the middle of a transition to understand how things are going to pan out or fall out, but the dots eventually always connect when you look backwards. So
Great. Well, I love that. I love obviously the diversity of your background and experience. And again, just across the four panelists, you can see like more than probably 20 different roles in healthcare, tech, public health, business. I mean, it's fascinating. I'm always amazed at the diversity of just backgrounds that folks from Emory come with. But I think also what you're speaking about is there's kind of this connecting the dots. It's creating this arc. So if you started somewhere coming out of Rollins, you could be in a totally different space in another couple of years, given everything that's going on in the market, everything that's going on with trends, everything that's going on with AI. So we'd love to hear from you, and then we'll go around the group But what are some of the trends that you've seen in tech and healthcare? I know you have a depth of experience in AI that are really impacting the job market and impacting the type of work you do.
Thanks, Now. That's a great question. So I think one of the biggest trends is access, right? Think before, like if you wanted to build something, create something, do something, you had to figure out, like, hey, who do I talk to? How do I get this information? What is the process for doing that? Today, access is fundamentally changed, and it's so easy for you to get any information that you need, and not just like basic information, but high quality. This is what you need to do, work you through all of the steps available. So that's one thing. Access has fundamentally changed, and those people who know how to use it well are definitely like ahead of the curve. The second thing I would say is productivity. And I'm also one of those people, but I was reading this recent article where people are really fatigued with AI. Like AI, in fact, is more unpopular than, you know, the war. And it's interesting because it makes you realize that the fatigue that people are feeling is constantly from like, hey, folks are losing their jobs. What does this mean for my job? The way to think about this, and this is something I'm applying as well because I feel AI fatigue as well, is how do I use this tool to improve my productivity today, right? Because it's changing so fast. If you're trying to stay abreast of all of the changes, it's going to be impossible. But if you start using it day to day, whether it's using it to code something for the first time or setting up an automated workflow, you will realize that this tool can really enhance your productivity. So making a dedicated effort to use the tools every single day. And then the third sort of trend that I see, which I feel is it's age old, but it's more relevant than ever today, is just do it, right? Like you have the information, this thing makes you productive. Like if there's a dream you have, if there's something you want to do, just go ahead and do it. I have a friend who recently got accepted into Anthropic, and she had never done anything with AI, but it was just she'd built some incredibly cool things, and that helped her get the interview. So I think if you leverage the access you have, if you continue to use the tool, the path will show its way, and then just go out and do it. So I think those would be the big three sort of, they're not trends, but they're the things that are really moving the needle right now that I keep seeing people doing. And yeah.
Love it. Yeah, and just on this one, you mentioned Anthropic. I think one of the things that's really interesting about some of the trends I've seen as well is Anthropic is creating some partnerships that in organizations and nonprofits to sort of elevate things like civic tech and government tech work. And you're starting to see a different way that tech is being perceived in certain circles. So public health circles, you're going to see some AI players that are going to gravitate maybe more toward healthcare and tech versus maybe some of the traditional AI players that we've been seeing for quite a few years. So I love that this sort of embedded trend that you're speaking about. Who are those companies that maybe align better with your values or your principles or what you want to do in the tech space? And I think the good news is there's more and more of those. Brianna, I would love to hear your thoughts on trends. I mean, you've got such an amazing level of experience and background, and you work in VC circles, or you're getting involved in startups. But what are some of the tech trends that you've seen through your work?
Yeah. So before I start, I love to piggyback what Ashima said. I still pick up shifts because I still need to be on top of my clinical skills and be up to date with everything. But AI is definitely helping with nurse productivity. I think that we're well aware that there is a nurse shortage everywhere, and it does help with documentation, patient education material, and like discharging planning paperwork. So these are times that, if we're short on the floor, AI definitely comes in and kind of helps with the hour work of writing discharge papers that, it basically saves us time. And then a lot of, to piggyback, your question was like, what are trends that I've been seeing in?
Yeah, like trends that you've seen in either tech or healthcare or both. And I think it's really kind of this lens of like, what are the trends that folks on the call can kind of connect with as they think about the job market, as they think about maybe a pivot in their career? Yeah.
Yeah. So what I've noticed, I guess I will speak from like an analyst perspective and just looking at the deals that are coming to the table. Mental health access is a very popular one. Maternal health and aging in place. That's something that I've like noticed that I noticed that's like I don't even know why I'm nervous. Like this is something that I don't even know why I'm nervous. But aging in place, patient monitoring is something really big. We have a lot of devices that are coming in and competing with Garmin, Aura, and Whoop watches on longevity and health.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think what you're talking about, there's even a theme that's coming out just given this recent conversation around access and how does that play into whether that's direct clinical care, whether that's thinking about accessibility to tech, whether that's being talking about through the lens of government services. So I love this theme that's starting to be created even amongst the two of you all as you start to think about these trends. David, would love to hear about you. You made a recent move to Boston, and it sounds like you're right in the midst of some of the work with Google and a week that's going to be really tech oriented for healthcare.
Yeah. So I've mostly been on the academic side and worked at some incubators and accelerators to help turn academic innovation, which historically I think also, by the way, agree with much of what everything that Brianna and Asla has talked about. I'll say that first. Sorry to back up a second, but I think reducing cognitive workload is a big deal, and what AI is helping across the board for physicians and clinicians. I think beyond that, academia typically existed in this ivory tower where all of the research was happening in academic institutions like Emory University. And innovators and entrepreneurs weren't thinking about who are clinicians, nurses, PAs, physicians, weren't thinking about how to spin those ideas out into the public to help a greater audience. And so I think there's more of an emphasis now in academia about how do we bring this innovation happening within the institution out into the public, and how do we spin those things out? So worked a bit with Office of Tech Transfer and other tech transfer organizations, including lawyers who pivoted into the IP space to learn about how we do intellectual property, how we move patents forward, how we do this so that this technology that's happening at an institution's hospital can actually be happening at community hospitals, at community clinics, and in the larger world. I think beyond that, there's a real need for a clinical translator. So if you have a background in epidemiology, if you're a physician, if you're a nurse, if you're a programmer, if you have a skill set in an area that may not be in tech, let's say, it's still very much needed to speak the language and translate for the people that are programming. So I'm not the best coder. I did a bit of it in grad school, but I'm not sitting in a room coding. But what has helped are these tools that can allow me to do the code myself, so vibe coding and sort of agentic AI. But more than that, to be able to translate a clinical problem or a problem that I see in my industry for the people that can code much better than I can. And there's a lot of need for that now in the market, in terms of utilizing your skill set for emphasizing the needs in that specific arena. And then lastly, I'll just touch on sort of the non-traditional paths. I in recruiting for residency, there were lots of conversations had about people in non-traditional sort of paths, whether that not that's consulting, venture capital, regulation, who are then pivoting into a career in clinical medicine, which is what I did. And that was a real like bent that I used in the interview process, and it actually benefited me. Whereas before that, people may have been a little bit nervous to hire a resident who had background in startups and venture and regulation. I think nowadays it's welcomed in a different kind of way than it was before. That's emphasized this week. I'll throw some links in the chat, but it's Tech Week in Boston this week. They have Tech Week in Atlanta, has actually been going for a really long time. And I encourage you all to look into it. I'll send a link. But Tech Week, if you're in Boston, is happening this week. There are thousands of events happening in Boston and New York, literally thousands of events, sponsored by Andreessen Horowitz, which is a large venture capital firm with many different verticals. But happening here, San Francisco, New York, Atlanta, and other major cities and hubs in the US. And it's just a chance for you to go meet people. So I spent the morning at Google with 100 other founders talking specifically about medical technology. And many of them did not come from healthcare backgrounds. So there's real opportunity and lots of resources for those who want to pivot into the field.
That's great. And David, as I mentioned too, what we'll do, you can definitely put a lot of that in the chat, but we'll also make sure as a follow-up that we get all those resources and links and orgs that people can connect with coming out of the conversation. I want to just highlight one thing and then I'd love to pass it over to Matt, David, about what you said. I think is really important is that sometimes in the tech space, it can feel kind of overwhelming. Like I'm not a techie, right? Right. I'm not a coder. I'm not someone who brings in maybe a tech acumen on the quant side. And speaking from my own experience, sometimes that is going to be always a valuable skill set. But I think where you can look at your background that is maybe a little more non-traditional, or, I'm not a techie by trade, but I can bring a lot of systems thinking, right? I can do a lot of critical strategic problem solving in a very different way and then get paired up with some of the tech-oriented team members. And I think never underestimate how valuable those types of skills are. I mean, I'll speak for Rollins and some of the work that I've done in government tech. There is such a demand for people that can look strategically and think more critically and to look at the systems and start to connect these dots in a different way while having the foundation of AI and some of the quant outputs that are being created in a more efficient way. So I love this point that you're raising. Matt, would love to hear your thoughts on the trends as well, and just kind of anything that kind of builds upon what we were just chatting about.
Yeah, absolutely. My journey as a founder in healthcare has a lot of ups and downs. It's been about 8 years now. When I started the company with Dr. Zola, initially we thought that building a app with large buttons and what we thought to be very easy to use user interface would be the first time someone with moderate to advanced dementia would ever have something they can actually use and actually have productive ways to remember family or remember how to do their daily routines. Um, that hypothesis was not correct. There are so many other aspects to what you believe to be true in terms of clinical changes in people's brains. Where you're implementing this, is it in assisted living or home care or by a family caregiver? And the fact that especially when someone has a cognitive decline, to provide them with a new kind of approach to doing something when they hadn't been doing that their whole lives, no matter how easy you think that the process is compared to what you have seen on the market or what you do, it's just not an organic, way of thinking for them. So we've had to do so many pivots along the way to working with lower acuity individuals, really actually going younger. So the work that David's doing with pediatrics, we're finding a lot of success with the neurodivergent community there, because younger individuals, they're already on tech. They're already, looking for ways to use it in more productive ways, or their parents are looking for that. And it was a better ideal customer profile for us. Uh, I will also add that decreasing that cognitive load that was mentioned before is really important when we're thinking about AI. When we wake up in the morning, a lot of us are really fresh. And as the day goes on, as things get thrown at you, you have to context switch. You got to, go from one meeting or topic to the next. Eventually, that reserve of brain power goes down and down and down and down. So if you can kind of think about your, a solution, if you're an aspiring founder, to really build something that will help preserve people's ability to stay sharp, to help them, tap into that decision making and not have to do a lot of the repeated actions. That is something that I think everyone should lean into in whatever area that they're passionate about, or they have a personal experience, or they know is a growing trend. Just like, Brianna kind of keeping her clinical skills sharp while going into the venture and business world. For me and my experience with Map Habit, like Ashta had said, I would have never thought that starting a company in the geriatric space and getting all this money from the National Institute on Aging would now lead me back towards, actually working with the neurodivergent population. So, messages, be flexible, build practical, easy to understand solutions that fill a void, and stay positive, because a lot of reason why startups fail, or don't advance, is just giving it the amount of time that it needs. So those are some of my takeaways.
That's great. Yeah, and I think there's, we've seen this for quite a while, but I think even in the last, year and a half, it was almost a nice, sometimes it was a nice to have, to see how these groups start to coalesce and how you start to see these coalitions being built for something more strategic, maybe more intentional, as you think about a business, an outcome, whatever it might be. It feels like in the last year and a half, it's become a necessity, right? Where funding sources are changing. So how do VC circles and startup circles better connect with public health, right? How can nurses connect more with technology that allows them to have more direct patient care time versus some of the more administrative tasks that are important, but again, allows them to have a more direct connection to the patients that they're serving. So I love what you're saying there, Matt. What I'd love to do is maybe go a little deeper. I know one of the things we wanted to talk with this group of peers about is also around some of the skills. So what are some of the backgrounds and the skill sets, that you are seeing to be really important to invest in or to maybe elevate? Maybe you've had a skill set that you haven't really used for many years, but is becoming more important in this current environment, in the tech healthcare space. So would love to have someone kick us off and just talk about, what are those technical, non-technical skills that you think are really important, especially for some of the folks on the call that are early on in their career.
I can get the ball rolling.
Yeah, go for it.
And I might say something really controversial. So
love it.
Like it. And ignore it if you don't believe it. But there was this very interesting, I'm going to give two examples. There was this very interesting sort of acquisition that happened, which was an acquisition of a company that was created by a teenager. So he started it right when ChatGPT came out, and it was a better version of MyFitnessPal. And what it did is you could take a photo of any meal that you took. And then based on that photo, it would give you a calorie count. And then it would be like, hey, you should be eating 1,800 calories to lose weight. And we think you ate 400 calories for breakfast. So it used AI to, instead of entering meals, which a lot of people have to do in MyFitnessPal, which is painful, cumbersome, it automated some of it. Was it absolutely correct in getting the right calorie count? No, but it was approximately correct. Second, he was really good at marketing. He used TikTok, Gen Z folks, to get his app out there. And it was acquired by MyFitnessPal for like millions of dollars, close to like around 50 million. This was a teenager who built this, who was in high school while he was building this, who was not an engineer. So this idea that you need a skill in today's day and age, I fundamentally think is not true. I work in retail. I have never coded in my life, but I started to play with Claude Code, and I have launched an app which sits on my phone. I bypassed Apple Store completely because you have to pay it. It takes a whole bunch of time, and it's now living on my phone, and it tracks everything for me, and I have zero coding experience. So this idea that you need a specific skill, I fundamentally don't agree with that anymore. Like, it's incredible how powerful these tools are. What you need is the ability to think clearly, It's the ability to relentlessly execute. It's curiosity, because the better you get at asking questions, the better you get at explaining what you're trying to do. If you have a fundamental understanding of what good looks like, right? Like if you're trying to create a website, you have a good sense of what a good website is. You don't need UI training. It will do all of that for you, but you need to be able to tell it, hey, this is wonky. This is not customer centric. This does not work. And it will build for you. So my answer is, I don't think you need technical skills. I don't think you need to go to college. I think you need curiosity. I think you need clear thinking. I think you need like some of that relentless drive, motivation. And you have to have a good sense of the market that you're in, like what good and bad looks like. If you have that, like you will succeed in today's day and age. Like if a teenager can, and he can become a millionaire in 2.5 years by building this app, and you're seeing so many of those stories, right? That is the most extreme version of the stories, but you're seeing kids in their 30s, not kids, like people in their 30s, 40s, 50s solving a problem at scale, marketing it right, and getting an exit. So that I know might be controversial, but that would be my answer.
I like controversial statements. I love the intent of what you're saying. I resonate with, right? And it kind of gets it to this point of how can we demystify that the tech industry can feel very intimidating if you're not a techie by trade, right? If you don't have these skills that you've built for 20 years, do I have a place in the tech
Tech in
industry?
the healthcare industry. This guy has like
Yeah.
MD, two PhDs from
Oh,
Harvard. He
if you
went to
can
Emory.
go, I read. Yeah, oh, perfect. So I love the intent of what you're saying. Would love to hear from others on the panel. Just your thoughts on skill sets. Do you need skill sets? What are the types of backgrounds you're seeing that would resonate well in the tech healthcare space?
Yeah, I mean, I can chime in a little bit here. My sister
Yeah.
graduated from the BBA program at Goizueta, and was working in marketing at Comcast, and recently was on the job hunt, primarily looking at health tech firms, and marketed herself as a strategy sort of marketing person. I think it's important to realize that these startups need people in different verticals, doing different expert, like having different experience and background. So you can pivot from health tech to retail. Asta did it. You can do venture capital from clinical background, right? They need venture capital firms need people who can evaluate devices appropriately so that they are making the best investments in their startups, right? So I think thinking about how you can sort of apply your background. And I agree to some degree about not necessarily having a skill set, because you can learn coding now. You can use agentic agents to do coding for you, so you don't necessarily need to be a coder, but being able to communicate, being able to have that skill set of communication, and be able to bring whatever background you have to the startup world, to the tech world, to the venture world, and be able to market yourself with that background, I think is an invaluable skill that can take you very far.
Love it, David. Yeah, thank you for building upon that. And yeah, I think there's sort of a nuance that you're talking about, right? Like, do you need to have the coding skills? Well, maybe that's a question, but there's something broader. I love the way you're talking about translation and how do you connect these dots and how do you look at the systems and how do you bring a different perspective, so that you could have business and tech leaders in the room problem solving around the same challenge, right? Or if you're creating a business, bring in the tech and the business leaders at the same time, and then they're getting into a different level of dialogue to build something that is going to truly be human-centered, right? It's going to be centered around who is in need of something in the healthcare space. So love it. Matt or Brianna, any thoughts on skills, backgrounds? Yeah.
I'm happy to go. So I guess like from my experience, I can also like you don't need any skills. I feel like as a nurse, I started off when I first started with the startup. I went to the Goizueta Business School with my idea, and I felt like the elephant in the room because they were talking about venture capital and seed round, and I'm just like sitting there like this is a foreign language, and I didn't know if I belonged there because I'm like, how am I going to get caught up with all these verbiage and like who I should meet and like what I should do, and I couldn't speak the language, so I feel like I was like 10 steps behind. And you know what? I was like, I was very determined into like what I was building. And I felt like, you know what? Clinicians needs to be in this space. I feel like we are very privileged in our clinical skills, but we just don't know how to leverage it going beyond the four walls, which is the hospitals. So I sat down, I like YouTube. I read every single book about like venture capital and what does it need and how to evolve in the tech ecosystem. And as you progress in the tech ecosystem and you meet other people, you'll pick up on the language and you ask questions. And second thing is like tell people what you need. Like I said, I came from a nursing background, no technical experience, no business experience, but I just knew that we belong in this space and we can contribute so much to medical devices that were being built. Because I've noticed that there's a lot of companies that are healthcare companies, but when I look at like the pitch deck, I'm like, there's no clinician like on the board. So is this really a healthcare company or this is a company that's building in healthcare? So yeah, I think the determination and just being willing to be that lifelong learner is very important. Coming from just, being a nurse, I think that's very important. And also, like, I went back to the school of nursing and I was like, hey, like, why are we not taught about going beyond the bedside? Like, why is this not in our curriculum? Doctors are being taught to go out and own their own practices and they're encouraged to do so. But I feel like we are taught to go out in the hospitals to work, become a nurse manager, probably become on one of the C-suites executive in the hospitals. Well, we're not taught to become nurse consultants, work on a part of a product or going to healthcare VC. Like, why are those not an options that are being taught our last semester of nursing school?
So real quick, Matt, I love what you're saying here. And this is something that I've emphasized in many of these tech circles through the Rollins board for quite some time, but I use this simple example of someone who has an epidemiology background, someone who is working as an epidemiologist. My question is always back, do you know how valuable you are in the tech sector? Because of the skills that you're bringing. So maybe you worked at the CDC for 10 years and you've had to make a change in your career. So it's getting people to, I love what you're saying, because you're talking about these non-traditional roles in your context for folks that have a nursing background. So why are nurses not being exposed more to consulting, VC circles or startup circles? In a similar vein, how can we do that across all of our various schools? Because I think what I'm starting, I knew this, but I think it's coming out on this call, is that the value of folks in healthcare with clinical backgrounds that understand what the needs are of patients is even more going to be more in demand with all these trends in tech. And so how can you have a seat at the table to be a true leader, but also bringing a different level of value as you start to think about this sort of larger movement? So I love it. Matt, any thoughts on this with respect to skills and backgrounds?
Yeah, no, I just want to kind of build on some of what the other presenters have touched upon is yeah, you can really do anything that you put your mind to. 8 years ago, I had no healthcare background, other than some of the lived experience supporting my cousin with Down syndrome and my uncle with early onset Alzheimer's disease. I didn't know anything about the brain pathology. I placed out of any life sciences classes in Emory because of the AP exams, which I now regret not doing a neuroscience focus. But yeah, there's just so much you can learn either through, querying, reading books, YouTube videos, lived experience. Obviously, on the job training is the best. So, in the past 8 years, coming from no formal healthcare background, I didn't know what the difference between regulatory or reimbursement strategy is to now, being a principal investigator on $12 million worth of NIH funding, to have 7 peer-reviewed publications under my belt, to now really understanding how all these different state Medicaid programs work and how fee-for-service and value-based care, like I'm viewed as, an expert amongst other kind of technology digital health companies. And I'm a very modest person, but I only say that because, if you have a passion and you really believe that there needs to be disruption or a change in the status quo, just go for it and just roll up your sleeves and put in the time, and you'll surprise yourself how quickly that you'll absorb and really become a leader in the space.
Very good. All right. Well, we have about 4, maybe 5 minutes before we open it up to questions from the group. And I know Sophia and her team are sort of monitoring that. And we'll give an opportunity for folks on the call just to open it up. But I would love to have folks, our sort of final question is, as you think about just very practical ways that alumni can explore healthcare tech, you all have talked about tons of different ways, tons of different opportunities, traditional, non-traditional. Would love to just go around the Zoom and get your perspective on, again, what are some practical ways that alumni can explore healthcare tech? And then also any thoughts you have for folks on the call that feel intimidated by the tech industry, and any advice you might give to an alum thinking about tech as a career for healthcare tech. David, you want to kick us off? Yeah.
Sure, I can.
Yeah.
So I think initially it was pretty intimidating to come in and understand who the payers are and how reimbursements work and how startups spin out from academia and how they get bought out and what a seed and a pre-seed and a Series A and a Series B. There's so many ways, as you've heard in this call, to get engaged in this world. You can be an investor, you can be a founder, you can be somewhere in between. You could, be in pharma, learn about CROs and all of these different sort of players in the market. There's so much opportunity out there; it's very overwhelming. So I think that but while it seems large, it's a pretty small world. And even amongst the people on this call, in networking with them on LinkedIn, many of us, if not all of us, already had multiple connections from the Emory world and from outside of the Emory world that we were mutually connected to. And that is true across the board, whether or not you're a medical student, a college student, doing your MPH, post grad and trying to make a pivot, you may still have connections to the general partner of Google Ventures. You may be surprised at how many connections you have to that person as a simple founder of a small startup or as a student. And so I implore to you all to don't be afraid to reach out and make the connection and ask to get together. I think it's a very small world once you are in it and get to know it. And people are very willing to help along the way if you reach out and make those connections. There's a little bit of some self-starting and trying to figure out how to market yourself and give your pitch. But once you figure that out and sort of explain your background, like we've talked about, there are many ways to find your way to various different parts of this world. And also giving yourself the flexibility to explore different parts of it, whether or not that's the investor side, the startup side, the founder side, or somewhere in between academia and whatnot. I really do think the Emory network is pretty vast, and I wouldn't be afraid to jump headfirst. Maybe not understand all the lingo at first, but slowly we'll start to sort of learn the players and explore those interests further.
Love it. Thank you, David. Yeah, and I love the point of this is the community to engage and ask the questions and connect on LinkedIn or whatever channel is comfortable for you. But 100% agree with that intent. Yeah, love it. How about other folks on, like if you're feeling intimidated by the tech industry, but also practical ways that alumni can test out whether healthcare tech is for them?
I can share because I was looking at some of the questions that have come in, and both of the questions have been about how to break in and get a job in healthcare tech.
Yes.
I think that's a fundamental question that a lot of people are facing. Like, hey, if I'm job hunting today, how do I get a job in the field I want, in a role I want? So I would think about it in a couple of ways, right? One, like part of job hunting is figuring out, where do I apply? Who do I apply? Is there a role open? Who can I talk to? Who can introduce me? A lot of that work, like between Claude Cowork, which sits on your desktop, and the Claude plugin and Claude itself, like you can automate. Like it should not be taking up a lot of your brain space, because prompted in the right way between those three, you can create an ecosystem where you can get all of this information. Like, here's everyone in the healthcare space who's doing something around it. Here's the company, here's the background information, here's what you need to know, here are the projects that they have announced in press, here is their last earnings report. LinkedIn is a really tough one because it's hard to integrate with it, but like you could try and see if you can have it run through LinkedIn and find out who all work for it. What have they posted on their LinkedIn? What are their most recent messages are they talking about? So you'll get all of that context can be accumulated in a very automated way quickly. The second part of it is humans and networking. Like, I personally, as an introvert, hate that, but in today's day and age, if you want to get a job, there's so many people applying for every role. I was reading, they're like, at Google, there were 1,000 people who applied for one role. Obviously, that number will vary depending on which company you're applying to, but given the job market, like the human networking aspect of that is going to be huge. Again, that is the place where you can have automation, like managing your calendar, sending out emails, scheduling meetings. All of that can be done using AI, but then network really hard. And then third is go through the interview process, use AI to help you refine your interview stories, all of those things. And when you land the job, use AI to be really smart, right? Like, I use it every day in my job, saying, this is what I'm doing, I'm not sure, help me get smart, help me do research, all of those things. So AI can be leveraged across the stack. And it's incredible that if you bring some of that to each phase, you can be a lot more productive, and it can do things for you which would take you hours. Like, researching one company for me takes hours. Now I just give it an overnight, like, hey, do this for me. And I get up, it's a PDF, and I can just read the PDF and get smart on it. So that's how I think about getting a job in healthcare right now.
Very good. Thank you for making it really practical and tactical as well. Matt or Brianna, any other thoughts on just practical ways that alumni can kind of test out healthcare tech for themselves?
Can I add one thing to ask though before you say, Brianna? Sorry, I know I mentioned this in the chat, but there's a link to Bonfire if anyone's interested. It's a local group. They're sort of like health tech nerds in Atlanta. But if you are wanting to get together at, like, I know there's a lot of Atlanta people on this call, but they meet up at like New Realm and other breweries, and this happens in other cities where it's purely social. And a lot of the health world, like health tech world, loves to socialize. So if you go to these events and meet these people, you'll realize that a lot of them are coming again and again, and those relationships can get you pretty far. Sorry, Brianna, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to talk about Bonfire because I end up going to one of their events. But networking, I feel like I can speak from a nurse perspective. Like working your 3 days in a row, your 312s, like it's like you don't want to do anything on your 4 days off. But go out and network. I feel like once you network and tell people what you're building, tell people what you need, and you can connect to other people who are building similar things or who can help you with what you're building. But another suggestion, so Georgia Tech they're always building, the students are always building biomedical devices or building healthcare apps. And I would say reach out to a professor in Georgia Tech, say, hey, I'm a nurse from the School of Nursing. I would love to be a part of a startup group. Do you have any startups that would just like to ask clinical questions, or seeing if there's a role that you can probably intern. One of my nurse practitioner friends, she consults for a company that's rolling out of Georgia Tech, and they're building a catheter. And these are just a group of engineers and have no bedside manner. And she comes in and give advice on what will and would not work based on her bedside experience. So yeah, for me, I think it's just networking and telling people what you need. And that's how I was able to kind of maneuver in the tech scene. And then also too, like, I feel like there was not a space for just nurses. So every month I decided to host, it's called Beyond the Bedside. And it's a group of nurses that we meet and support local businesses. And we talk about what we're building and how we can help one another. And I almost like 2 years ago, I connected back with the School of Nursing and we collaborated on, it was called Beyond the Bedside, but it was clinicians talking about this, like how can nurses leverage their clinical skills, and some were building independent practices, some were building apps, but just being in this space where you can kind of build on top of one another. So this network for me, it's just big on networking.
Love it. Thanks, Brianna. Matt, any thoughts?
Yeah, just another resource for those in Atlanta. TAG stands for Technology Association of Georgia. They have a lot of industry groups, specifically one that I go to and belong to that's a good networking opportunity is their digital health group. So that is definitely something to keep on your radar. For those of you that are in Midtown, I'm kind of in the startup founder realm and world. ATDC, which is Georgia Tech's Advanced Technology Development Center, they have every Thursday between like 5 and 8 o'clock. They call it Industry Night. It's basically a networking event where they have other founders or other entrepreneurs, but people who are looking to innovate within healthcare. That is at Fifth and Spring in Midtown, basically on Georgia Tech's campus. That's another great networking event that you can just show up and there's really no agenda. But again, if you're willing to kind of put on your extroverted shoes for a night and just kind of work the room, you can really learn a lot and meet a lot of people who, if you kind of share what your passions are, if it's not them themselves, they may know others that they can link you up with. So those are two other options.
Love it.
Can I chime in?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Oh, just food for thought. Atlanta Tech Village is also located in Buckhead. That's I was a part of one of their innovation program, but a lot of founders go and pitch. I think it's every first Monday of the month or the last Monday of the month, but founders come in and pitch, and every pitch deck has an ask. So sometimes they do ask like, hey, I need help with X, Y, and Z. And if you feel like your skills can match with what they need, you can, talk to them after finish pitching. So that's something that I go to very often.
The other one last thing, local thing in Atlanta, I just put in the chat. The hatcheries are great resources, Niles just said, but Emory Bioentrepreneurship Networking happens every month from 4:30 to 6 p.m. on the third Thursday. They bring in external speakers, internal speakers, and there's a whole network of people that are connected to Emory currently, but also alumni and folks who are founding companies in Atlanta who come. So if you're able to get to campus and you're in Atlanta, it's a great network that you can become a part of.
Very good. All right. So obviously there is a wealth of information and resources. As I mentioned, we're going to create a summary coming out of this webinar today so that you have all the links that have been put in the chat by folks on the panel, but also from folks that are just our peers that have sort of built upon some of the momentum coming out of this call. I'm serious with my comment in the chat. I feel like there's something about this community and how we're talking about all of these various opportunities in healthcare tech, representing how many different schools from Emory and just the diversity of experience, not only from the panelists, but also from the group. So we'd love to find a way, and I'll talk to Sophia about how to build upon some momentum today. But one of the things we wanted to do with a final poll question is just kind of get your reaction to some of the topics we talked about today and what resonated most with you, so that we can really start to think about, one, some follow-up, but also two, additional programming in the year ahead that's going to resonate not only with this group, but I think to a broader swath of Emory alum that are thinking about healthcare and tech and what that can mean for them. All right, so AI, not a surprise, yes, but how to prepare for a career in tech, data and insights, government tech, civic tech. Okay, good. Well, I just want to say we're running up on time. Thank you to everyone on the panel. This has been just really invigorating conversation. I always get very optimistic coming out of these types of webinars because the future is bright, even with all the challenges that we're in the midst of. But it does create a tremendous amount of opportunity. We'll follow up with some of the next steps and the links and the resources. And then we'll also follow up with you if you're interested to be part of maybe an informal community, just to continue with the momentum coming out of today and a lot of the work that everyone on this panel has been talking about. You can see this is something that each of them have invested in for years, if not decades. And there's this tremendous opportunity to continue to connect those dots for young alumni and for alumni across any school across Emory. So thank you all for attending. Thank you again to all the panelists, and we'll look forward to connecting with you soon. Take care.